Good afternoon. I'm Leslie Walsh, and this is Christopher Jonathan Ott, and I'm going to be interviewing Christopher today, Chris Ott, most of you know him as, and I'm just going to be asking him about some different topics. Chris has a master's degree from the University of Arkansas, and he also has a degree in filmmaking from the University of Southern California. So we'll begin.
Thank you, Leslie.
Uh, Chris, could you tell me a little bit about your book that came out a few years ago, The Cosmology of Change, A Simpler Explanation?
Yeah, it was called The Evolution of Perception. The Evolution of Perception and the Cosmology of Substance. Sounds pretty heady, but I wrote that in 2004, so that's about 9 years ago, and coming on 10 years. And it was an idea that I had when I studied philosophy, and I waited till I graduated before I wrote it because it was too unusual for a master's thesis. But anyway, it was just the idea. It's really hard to explain, actually, and I'm not even going to completely try. Let me think. There is an idea that there's a material world and that there's matter and that the world is made of matter. But there is another theory that has existed for a long time, and it's called idealism, and it really should be called ideaism, that the world is really ideas in the mind. So the world is really what we perceive, and there is no matter. But this theory, called idealism, in all of its various forms, has often failed to be able to account for our ordinary experience of the world that makes sense. And I had an idea of a new form of idealism, the idea that the world is mental rather than physical, really, most fundamentally. And it was the idea that what really is perception. But what I mean by perception isn't just seeing, but all our senses, and then also I say what I mean is anything we perceive internally or externally. So our thoughts, our dreams, everything. Okay. And so I say that the universe, I paint a cosmology means a creation story, but also mechanics by which things continue to run. And I created a cosmology of based on the idea of an evolution of perception. So in the beginning there was perception, but it had to develop ways of seeing, and that these ways of seeing produce the complicated world that we see. And it was unique, and I read it to my professor, who was my thesis advisor, and he had his degree from Stanford, and he listened to it. He told me to write it in 10 pages, and I did toward the end of my thesis. And he said, you should develop this. This is totally unique. No one has ever had that thought before. But that's all. But it would be so hard to get into it, and whenever I try, I get, it doesn't. It's very. It has to be read, and it's read slowly and read twice. But that's all. So that's all on that.
Yeah. I kind of understand because from studying the Course in Miracles, one of the things that it always stresses is we're not bodies, we're minds.
Yes, that's it. And that's not that's actually a traditional Western idea that most people don't know about.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So some people get caught up on that word mind because they're like, oh no, we're souls, because they don't like the word mind.
But I think you do mean mind.
Yeah.
Like the soul develops a mind, The one, Berkeley, California. Have you been to Berkeley? You have?
Yeah, the place.
Yeah. Because we both lived together in L.A.
Well, I've been there with Erwin Luck's film project. I stayed there.
Oh, okay. Because Berkeley, California was named after a guy, Irish philosopher named George Berkeley. And they mispronounce it.
Oh.
But probably Irish people might go even something else, like Berkeley.
Yeah.
I don't know how. But George Berkeley, for which Berkeley was named after, he believed that all the world were minds, that we are minds, and that he believed there was no material. So would that be true in Course in Miracles, that the world is perception, basically?
Yeah, and everything's like all illusion.
Yeah, it's all an illusion. It's a perceptual illusion. It's like we definitely perceive it, and it's concrete and it's hard, but it's still, even that's perception. You know, when I feel my hand hit this, I'm perceiving the feeling of it hitting this, and it stops. Those are the rules that govern my perception. In fact, I could simplify my whole idea with a few words. It's actually, but it sounds like physics, but it's not. It's not that hard. It's that the laws of physics, like gravity and everything, and the laws of physics that keep my hand from moving through my hand, are laws of perception.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have that these laws of perception evolved in this sort of this one universal mind, and we're all really part of that universal mind. And that's different than, see, back in Berkeley's day, he lived in the 1700s. They didn't have the idea of evolution. They just sort of thought you have to explain things like they are and they always were, or something, or God created it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But since Darwin, we have all kinds of ideas like that we understand that things evolve, like even not just animals, but like the continents move and they evolve into what the shape they are, and gases cool and they turn into liquids and solids, and so they really couldn't have had this idea back in the Enlightenment. It's only in the modern time where we can put together that idealism with our modern view of how things evolve. Basically, this would be like the universe evolved, if we're going to put it in Meher Baba language, and maybe it would be the same as Course in Miracles, but the universe evolved in the mind of God. But we are
the mind of God.
Yes, yeah, we are the mind.
All one mind. We are God's mind. Like
exactly.
That song, like the Jules song. We are God's mind.
And even Berkeley didn't want to say that because he was a bishop of the Anglican Church, which is that's the English form of the American Episcopal Church.
Wasn't that created by King Henry VIII, the one that killed his wives?
What did
the
he
Anglican Church.
It might be. I know I just thought it was the English, but it's
the Protestant.
It's the first. Yeah.
The first Protestant
I guess that.
church.
I don't know enough about him, but I only know that Berkeley was an Anglican, and that's an English Protestant.
Yeah.
But they were very like Catholicism. It was extremely like it. And he was a bishop even, but he was an Anglican bishop.
Well, like if you go to like the Methodist Church, they say the benediction. They say, "I believe in the Holy Catholic Church."
Oh yeah.
You know how that.
Yeah, well, it's like their religion. Yeah, first there was Catholicism, but then there was this, and then
they still say that now.
Well, Methodists are pretty close to that old stuff too.
Yeah, they do communion and stuff.
So anyway, that covers that because that's metaphysics.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about your blog, and I know you have a few blogs, don't you? But one is Meher Baba's Words.
Meher Baba Words, just Meher Baba Words, and you can look up in Google. You can look up Meher Baba Words, and I'm at the top, or you could look up Meher Baba Blog, and I'm the first hit. I'm very proud that I'm very high. You can look up Meher Baba.
You're more researched than anybody.
Yeah, I have. It's good. I get a lot of traffic. And you can look up Meher Baba Flying Saucer. You can look up Meher Baba, just about anything strange. You can look up Meher Baba Blogger, Meher Baba. Actually, if you just looked up Meher Baba, I'm on the second. You know how you go to another page?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm on page 2.
Well, I hope this isn't like a rhetorical question, but what inspired you to write because to write Baba's Words specifically and to research them?
Well, you did say that we grew up together, right?
Well, yeah, I said you were my brother, and that we were we'll get on more about that later.
Yeah, Leslie and I are full brother and sister, and we share the same memories, and we're only 2 years apart. And if I was to talk about reincarnation, I have a whole idea that we knew each other in our last life and who we were and things. But we're very bonded, and we're the only siblings in our family that share the same mother and father. Our other sisters are half sisters.
Yeah, we have similar DNA.
Yeah, we're the Otts. We get the Lynn Ott line as us, and we have his madness and his genius.
Yeah.
But also, oh, by the way, we kind of do, like, anyway, I won't go into it, but your son is very artistic, David.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic musician. Anyway.
We're all artsy.
Yeah. So anyway, we grew up since you were 2 and I was 4, we knew about Baba, so we can't even remember not knowing about Baba. And before I knew any other philosophy or anything, I knew what Baba said. And so when I studied, anyway, I don't know what happened. Why isn't I've always found Baba fascinating, and I look for what just interests me. Like I never take a Baba quote that's pretty, like "Don't worry, be happy," and just put it on my blog with a pretty picture. Instead, I'll take something strange, like something he said about the origination of life on Earth that scientists don't know how life started.
And that people have a hard time believing, right? Like your average person will say, "Oh, that's not true." Right?
Yeah, but actually, I mean, if the more you look at it, the more it's possible Baba was right. Baba talked about really strange things, and they're fascinating because they're all topical, like ghosts, the missing link, the first life form, how we call
Bigfoot, is that the missing link? Is that the same?
I actually believe there is one like Bigfoot, possibly, at least, that went extinct recently. And Baba said they would find signs of the missing link. I mean, he said so-called missing link, because a lot of people go, "Oh, there's not just one missing link; it's a tree."
Yeah, what about the Loch Ness monster?
Oh God! Well, don't. I have an opinion on everything, and you're you're
that's
perfect.
Probably a conspiracy.
No, well, you and I we think alike. Okay.
Well, if you did like a word, like a
I am
word
interested
test,
in weird
and
things.
you said Bigfoot, what do you first think? Loch Ness monster.
I would. Yeah, that'll be the next one. Yeah, and I write about UFOs, and I write about, because Baba said something about UFOs. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, Baba said that they would. This is on my blog, and it's called, I think, The Missing Link, and Baba on the Missing Link. He says the so-called missing link, blah blah blah. Scientists may find signs of it in this place or Sumatra. And Sumatra is an island off of Indonesia. And sure enough, now he said that in the 30s, and in the just in the last 10, 15 years, they actually found skulls, not even petrified. They're only like 20,000 years old, of something that looks like a half man, half ape, and it's there's a couple. You can look it up. It's called the Hobbit. They call it the Hobbit because it was a little human being, like a pygmy kind of. Yeah, it was upright, but it had the face of like a chimpanzee.
Well, they say people are getting taller, like people are getting bigger.
Yeah, they are. Well, I think most of the little people. Well, they when they find ancient, like, missing link type things, some are real big, some are a little. But this one was little. And it would go, well, that's a big topic.
Yeah.
Okay, Loch Ness Monster, my opinion, sadly, I don't believe in it anymore. I would love there to be a Loch Ness Monster.
It's probably just a plant, or else it's just something they make TV shows about.
Yeah. I think it's the picture. Yeah, the pictures. I think it's a floating log that goes by every once. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
These
are fun questions.
Now this is here's a heated
subject.
Good.
Oh, good.
You all might get riled up about some of this.
Yeah.
But
well, it won't be your opinion, so they won't get mad at you.
Right.
Right.
But I believe in.
For all you like people who believe in the Loch Ness Monster, I love you still, and Leslie loves you, and she probably you could probably convince her, and you could convince me.
We could have a debate.
Yeah, we could do a whole evening just on that. But okay.
Yeah.
But I don't want to make anybody riled up. But with different opinions on Earth. Okay.
Okay, I know a lot of people have their minds made up on the next subject, but I
Okay.
want you to have an open mind.
Oh, ask me these. Yeah,
So
these
anyway,
political-like
I
questions.
want to ask about your view about population and global warming. Because
Wow.
all these, it's pretty popular for people to say, oh, the population is bad, too many people being born, and then the other one is oh, that's global warming. So I don't know. So what do you say?
Do
What do
you
you
really
think?
not know?
I
I mean,
have,
do you really not have a firm opinion one
I
way or the
have an
other?
opinion. I don't believe in the population explode thing because there's so much vacant land in the world
Right.
that I believe if they were able to give, and actually, so a lawyer, a blind attorney, Parnell Diggs, I'll give him a plug. He's a local
Parnell.
Diggs. He told me that I know this sounds socialistic, but he told me that if the wealth in this country were spread evenly, every single person, including babies, would have $50,000. So a family of three would have 150,000. A family of six would get
Oh, I see.
300,000. So everyone would be able to have a house in this whole country,
Sure.
a real house.
No,
I
I
mean,
believe that's
not
true.
an apartment or most poor people are living in trailers in this country. Like if they're Native American or African American or white, it doesn't matter. But if everybody was anyway. So I'm just going to ask you about.
By the way, like I heard another. I'm not sure if I have the numbers right because it's a long time ago. But Eisner, who was the head of Disney Studios, Disney Corporation, if his salary were spread evenly, everybody at Disneyland could make $30,000 a year.
Oh yeah,
instead of 14. Anyway, go on.
Okay, so I just want to hear what you have to say about that and about global warming as well.
Oh, population. Okay, I have thought about it an awful lot, and I've started from different places, but I really have come to my own settled opinion, and I don't think I share it with anybody. Well, a lot of my opinions I don't share with anybody. Like I've had, Mark Carr.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Well, Chris, I think you're the only one with that opinion."
Oh, I know somebody who doesn't believe in global warming. I don't know if you know Brian Darnell he's Baba Lover originally from Alabama, who lives in Georgia.
Oh, well, I actually read in a Gallup poll that the number of people who don't believe that there's global warming at all is between 3 and 5% of the U.S. population, depending on what year you test it. And I hope I got that right. But that absolutely, you get what I'm saying? So there's a lot of people that think it's not important, but the number of people who don't even think that it's happening is very, very, very tiny. But anyway, that's just polls. Okay, my opinion on the population is much like yours, but it's really, really interesting to tell my thought. Now, people, I don't care. They can get upset.
It's freedom of speech, First Amendment.
Well, this is a different opinion than probably anybody ever heard before. Well, first of all, I think that the population of the Earth could comfortably be 40 billion. And how do I get that figure? Well, actually, I read it when I was a teenager in a magazine.
But they think it's 7 billion.
Right now it's 7. What the Earth could comfortably hold and and everybody be affluent and have everything they need. Right. I'd say 40 billion. The joke of that is that there's no basis for any number. Because the Earth didn't come with a stamp on it. You know how a bus says this bus capacity can hold 300 people or 100? Yeah. This elevator can hold 10 people.
Right.
Well, the Earth doesn't come with one of those.
An elevator.
Right. So to say, oh well, we're going to be in real trouble. There were books about the population when the population was half what it is now. So if you try to think of your number, of what you think would be the right number for the Earth of human beings, you would have a very hard time justifying what you base that on. Okay? That's first of all. So it's all arbitrary. To go, oh, it's 9 billion. Oh, it's 11 billion. But these are just numbers. I mean, you can't even count to that. You can't even conceive of these numbers. But at the time of when we were born, the population was half what it is.
Yeah, we were born in the early 60s.
Right. Well, 59 for me and 61
that's right.
for you.
That's right. I
Right at the turn of the
thought
60s.
I was older than
At
you.
the time of Kennedy. That's fine. You probably are an older soul.
I was born in 61. I thought you were born in 63.
You're older soul, but
I got it reversed.
I'm 2 years older.
That's right. But see, it's a little bit. It's a senior moment.
Oh, we should do a whole series on these. There's so many things we could talk about, because I could say that I think that you died 2 years after me in our last life. We both died in New York, and we were born in New York two years apart. But anyway, those are my kind of like my woo thoughts. Anyway, on population, and I'm going to mix it with global warming. Okay, let's say that global warming is happening. Okay. I won't even talk about whether I think it's happening. It doesn't matter. Let's say that it warmed. Well, first of all, the technology that we have now isn't the technology that we had 200 years ago. We didn't even have electricity, right? Mm-hmm. And remember, the electricity that comes out of the wall was invented by Tesla, in like the early 20th century, beginning of the 20th century. And we couldn't have conceived of that before. Now we have this.
And now you can say to a cell phone, call so and so.
Yeah, and no one that happened in our lifetime. That's right. And the internet, and the fact that we're on YouTube right now, this is crazy. So you can't conceive of what's possible. So the idea that in 100 years we will still be burning coal and oil is really silly, or that we'll still have to only have ever thought of wind and solar. There are other technologies I know about that are right on the horizon that would replace all of that, but it takes some time. But the idea that the world is like a steady state, we're always going to be burning coal for eternity, is absurd. So let's just assume.
Or nuclear power.
Well, there's better things than the kind of nuclear power we have. If you look up Lockheed Martin fusion, I'm saying that to the person watching, look up Lockheed Martin fusion, and then you will see that then you'll see a video at Google out in California or Seattle, wherever they are, and in which they say that they could have fusion power in like 7 years.
What's
fusion? Isn't where they split an atom and it doesn't create radiation. It creates electricity like infinite amounts, but enough for. Okay, what they propose is there would be a reactor so small it could fit in the back of a truck that could power 100,000 homes. Anyway, those things are not far off. There's another thing called eStor, and it's called EESTOR. It's a battery that, if possible, if it really materializes, it's not even a battery. It's beyond batteries. Doesn't pollute anything, doesn't use anything rare, and could power a car to go just like we go now and charge in 5 minutes. And you could throw it in your garden and it wouldn't pollute the garden. Anyway, but let's say if there was global warming, that's assuming that we're never going to be able to come up with anything else but where we've been in the last 100 years, for hundreds of years. But let's assume that we'll be able to correct any kind of pollution soon on the horizon. I mean, within the next 100 years. But let's say that the Earth warmed. Now, if you get out a big map, I wish I had one.
I have a globe. Do you want to see
that?
that?
Give me the globe. Yeah, I want to show something. And this has to do with population. Oh, this is wonderful. Okay. This isn't quite as good as my map because it's well, you can't see it so well on the YouTube, but I'm going to sort of use my hand to kind of show the sizes of these areas. Okay, here's Africa. It's not too clear. Yeah, it's not too easy to see. This is the United States. Here's Canada. Anyway, okay, if you were to look better than this, if the cold parts of this planet were to become warm, we're talking about all of Russia, all of Canada, Alaska, Mongolia, and the southern part, Antarctica, the lower part of South America, Argentina, lower part of Argentina. Masses of cold places would become, the permafrost would thaw, and what is underneath the permafrost of these places like Canada, Alaska, Soviet Union, well, previous Soviet Union, Russia, Mongolia, Antarctica, what's under them is ancient forests.
Oh.
Ancient forests, fertile land.
Not water?
No. Under these places I'm naming, it's fertile, once forested land. And those places, in other words, it's farmable. Mm-hmm. But you can't farm it because it's too cold. No one lives in these places. Those would open up like frontiers that would increase the amount of bountiful farmable land of the earth by about double it.
Wow.
Okay. So you know how in America there was this big people moving to Oregon, mm-hmm. Because it was supposedly such great farmland.
Or people moving to New Zealand too.
Yeah, places with wonderful land, right? And New Zealand's pretty small on the globe. Imagine Oregon's a little place on the top top left of the United States, and they're going up there to farm. Imagine and stake out their what do you call that? Homestead?
Yeah, like
you just
back to the grid kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know that expression.
With those people that live total natural existence.
Oh, no, I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about like people going in wagon trains to Oregon to like pick out
like
a homestead. Yeah, they sign up for it on the map and then they go there.
Right.
There would be so much of that would suddenly become available. In other words, I think that everybody assumes everything's unnatural that man does. But what if God is even bigger than that? And that everything that man could possibly do is even in God's plan. Okay? Mm-hmm. You know how the animals and stuff, everything kind of works and everything kind of adjusts in nature? What if man, from God's perspective, is no different? And that man goes through an evolution that God can imagine. In other words, we're not leaving what God planned. That's absurd. You're imagining a limited plan. Mm-hmm. That the evolution of man is adjusted for on this planet. So as we go through this transition through coal and oil and stuff, and where we create this pollution, and we eventually end up with things like fusion and energy storage and things like this, mm-hmm. that we still yet to discover. What if it were even natural that things heat up? Then the land opens up for the larger amount of people that are made. I don't know. Are you following what I'm saying?
I think so. Like if the snow were to melt, then people could actually inhabit places.
Exactly. So we can't predict that. So when I say the Earth could hold 40 billion people, maybe it would be hard to feed 40 billion people on this cold planet with huge amounts of it covered in ice. But if it became fertile and farmable, it's almost like God saying, okay, man is growing, man is evolving, he's passing through these stages. Mm. It warms the earth for a period, and he opens up this new real estate to make it possible for that growth and evolution to be accommodated.
Yeah.
I don't know why no one ever thought of that before.
I don't know. I guess I saw this movie recently on Netflix about
mm-hmm.
these people that go fishing. People really do this. I can't remember. I guess like up in Alaska and places like that. Oh, Maine even, because that's near Canada. They cut like a hole in the ice and they fish and they even camp right on the ice. But
Yeah.
That was a monster movie. It wasn't the Loch Ness monster.
Well, we both love monster movies.
So
there's the thing. The entire equator, all the way around the Earth, is populated. But when you move away into the cold parts of the Earth, okay, above and below, you have less and less people. You get up into Canada and you have incredible. It's like I forget, like 8 people per square mile or something. It's so few people can be accommodated by those cold places. And so the idea that we have to keep the earth cold and we have to keep the population. Let me just say another thing. I skip around, but it's kind of exciting. I think people can get the point I'm getting at. Underneath a lot of this frozen land, it is pristinely clean. Okay, so let's say Antarctica, if that was to melt out, and you would have lakes that would be pristine, like the origin of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand how clean it would be. Or if what's now the Soviet Russia was to thaw in Alaska and these places that are just barren ice. Underneath, it's just pristine. The water is clean. It's like, I don't know. It's like paradise. What are we trying to prevent?
I guess
paradise.
They're worried about the polar bears. I think they don't.
Well, if you look up the polar bears, you find out that the fact about the polar bears was based on 2 polar bears that washed up on a shore because of a storm. And you can look that up, and that's provable. And you can also, the original thing about the polar bears that wound up in a documentary that became the story about the polar bears. And the polar bear population hasn't gone down, it's gone up. And I know that sounds funny, and Steve Colbert made fun of it, but it's actually true. You do have to just look it up, though.
Well, when they show ads to try to get you to donate to global warming or something, I don't know if they actually take donations for that, but they show pictures of like polar bears on little pieces of ice. Have you seen those pictures?
Yes, I have.
They're to try to.
And I've heard people say, yeah, but I'm really concerned about the polar bears.
Yeah, because they see those pictures of polar bears. On
well, there's actually it's an appeal to the emotions, and it's good to have emotions and care about polar bears, but there's nothing really happening to the polar bears. It would be sad.
They're just using the pictures, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, every time you eat, chicken, if you could go in and walk through the place where that chicken was slaughtered, you'd be like, oh, chickens, and you'd become a vegetarian, which I am.
Or you eat free range.
Or eat free range. I have free range eggs, because I eat eggs.
Me too, because they're like, I used to buy regular eggs, and my younger son said, Mom, don't buy those. He said, those way they raise those chickens and eggs, it's like concentration camps for chickens.
It's worse than concentration camps.
And so I spent the extra money, but I said, you really love chickens.
Yeah, and so if you really care about the polar bears, well, don't eat beef, because if you think that the cow died a really happy death, that you're eating, that's absurd. So you got to be consistent.
Right.
Care about everyone, everything, all people.
Right.
I personally don't believe global warming is happening whatsoever.
It doesn't seem like the climate is really changing.
No, I don't believe it at all.
I mean, it's a little warm here today, but we're in the deep south.
There's an increase in carbon dioxide because of the burning of these fossil fuels, some of them, and but there is no relation in history. Anyway, people are gonna go look it up. What's funny? I'll just tell you. There are websites where people go, here are 50 things to say to a global warming denier. Okay, and you can look that up, and you can read it and say, now memorize these things and then say that to that person. And then you can look up another website, 50 things to say, the other way. And you memorize, it's very funny. In other words, people are out there reading and memorizing what to say when somebody says something. So it becomes absurd. You can't even talk about it anymore when people are memorizing talking points.
Yeah. All right.
But it's okay to believe in global warming. What's it going to harm? And it's a compassionate thought, but I don't share it, but that's okay.
Okay, the next one is a little bit heated.
Ooh, how can you get more heated than that, than global warming?
Can you tell a little bit, about the eugenics conspiracy?
Oh, that's not, I love that topic. Eugenics, I don't think you knew about eugenics till I told you about it.
Right,
did you?
but I shared some videos on YouTube that I looked up, and I know about it now.
No, you found out more than me. You sent me an incredible BBC documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was
it was a long
called
one.
Social Darwinism. I think was the name of the YouTube video. They were very good. Anyway, eugenics. What do you want me to say about it? Like, well, define it.
Explain.
A lot of people don't know the word.
What it is and how it and how it might relate to what's happening today.
Okay.
Without getting into much trouble.
I know, because I've let go of a lot of my own conspiracy theories, and I'm very unconspiratorial actually now. But I have, I wonder about things. However, eugenics, for those who don't know, and probably your audience does, is the idea that man, because he's the head of evolution, it's kind of an atheist idea. That man just simply, we evolved by accident, and here we are, and we're at the top of the food chain, we're at the top of evolution, we're the smartest, strongest, of everything. We came up through this brutal evolution of survival of the fittest, where the sick animals, got eaten, and with the weak were picked off.
Yeah, like a blind wolf that won't be able to eat.
Right. I doubt that blind wolf really cares at that point, because wouldn't be much of a life for a blind wolf.
I don't know.
He's probably happy to get eaten by a...
I saw a program about these, because I love wolves, where these people there was a female wolf that wasn't eating because the sheep had cataracts and she couldn't
Oh God!
So they took her and they
those
gave her
so
cataract surgery.
Those documents.
He took her to a veteran. He was a wolf lover. He took her to a veterinarian, and he brought the veterinarian to live with him there in Wyoming, I think, or Utah. And they fell in love and got married, and they lived with the wolves. Well, they didn't live with the wolves, but they were able to get near them.
That's a really good segue into what eugenics is, because I'll explain. You just pointed out that here's a wolf and it has cataracts. And then people, out of compassion, healed its cataracts. But they're preserving the weak genes. Mm-hmm. This is the idea of the eugenicist. He worries, the eugenicist, that if we evolve because of survival of the fittest, where the weak are always, mercilessly moved aside to keep the species strong, that man doesn't have that anymore. And because we don't have any predators eating us, when we get weak,
Oh, yeah.
So we really need to weed our own kind out. We need to do the job that was happening in regular evolution among animals to each other. We need to weed each other. And one of the worst things that gets in the way of us weeding each other out intelligently, I got to picture Nazis being really intelligent.
One thing I have to say about the Nazis, they were really creative in a sick way. Not creative, but they were really inventive in their complicated
They were really, truly brilliant. It shows that, intelligence misdirected.
Don't get me wrong, viewers.
They'll understand.
We hate Nazis. We're Jewish even. I mean, we're half Jewish. But what I'm saying is, talk about when all these things that they were doing.
Oh, no. We're Jewish. We're Jewish. That's all we need to say.
I'm just saying, it's just they really had some, imagination in the creepiness, in a creepy kind of way.
Dr. Evil. Where there's dolphins with the exploding somethings on their, So, anyway, the problem with the idea of eugenics, the problem for the eugenicist is that what gets in the way of us being smart and getting rid of the weak and so cleaning out the bloodline is compassion. The ethnic cleansing. Cleansing. They also use the word, the Nazis used, and Americans used the word in the heyday of eugenics was the 1920s. And if you go back, they had the word genetic hygiene. I don't know if that's a word. Ethnic hygiene. I forget. Racial hygiene. Hygiene.
Does that have? I read a book about all the lynchings of black people in the 20s when Theodore Roosevelt was president.
Yes.
But
that wasn't because of eugenics.
It wasn't.
No, they weren't doing. They were just doing that out of sheer ignorance.
Cruelty.
Sheer ignorant fools. No, they had horrible. They hunted down witches. In the all the way back in the Roman days, they hunted witches and
They've always got someone to persecute.
Yeah, it's kind of like mean kids on the playground that chase down the weak kid and beat them up and drag them to the mud.
Right.
Kind of the way I treated you when you were
that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't quite that bad. Oh, okay. Let me see. Okay, so the problem from the point of view of the eugenicists, the whole thing that mucks it all up, is compassion. And a real big problem is like Christianity, Jesus. Because Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." That's
right.
like
That's
to a
my
eugenicist
favorite part of the Bible.
Yeah, exactly. And so to a eugenicist, it's like, what is he, crazy? Blessed are the meek. We need to kill off the meek.
Yeah.
Or we need to starve off the meek. Or the meek should get what they deserve for being meek. And he's saying, blessed are the meek.
They don't like meek people.
Exactly. Well, the whole Nazi thing was the strong, the good. You couldn't get in the SS if you had one filling in your mouth.
Right.
Because that showed an imperfection in your genes, supposedly. Might have been an imperfection in your stupid dentist. But they were so dumb. But you get the point. Mm-hmm. So it's really atheist. It's really uncompassionate. The idea is that, what you said was that in that documentary, they healed the cataracts of the wolf. They go, oh, that's the problem. That's the problem. Those people were caring about that wolf. You can't care about anything. You have to care about the species and the bloodline, strength. And that was the whole kind of Nazi thing. So that's what eugenics is the idea that we'll get stronger and healthier if we have no compassion. Mm. You must stomp out the weak. It's very bizarre. It's like very, very, it's like religion, Islam has compassion too, where they give to the poor, and Christians, all religions do. Jews do, the mensch, the Jewish guy who looks away when the guy owes him money and all those stories. That's bad. We need to get rid of all that. We need to be really, really stomp on the weak. And we need to sterilize those, who are weak. And we need, our dad, who was blind and had retinitis pigmentosa under Nazism, and if you take it under eugenics, he should have been sterilized. Forcibly.
Someone said to me,
if not taken to a gas chamber.
Someone who's a psychologist said to me recently that she thought that people in prison who had killed their child should be sterilized, and I said I don't know about that, because I know it's really horrible, but it might cross a line of ethics, because then they might start using that in all other situations, which would
I agree with you.
Right. So.
Well, you and I are pretty conservative when it comes, probably because of Mayor Baba, maybe. We're pretty conservative about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're kind of pro-life.
But I mean, they don't even sterilize child molesters. I mean, they give them drugs to make them not have.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
No, they don't.
Isn't that weird?
So I mean, if anyone.
Unless it's something we don't know about.
Well,
I don't think so.
They used to take retarded girls and they would get them fixed or something. They do that in the South here.
Anyway, you said something about continuation of eugenics. Yeah. I do think that there are forms of eugenics that exist now under different names. And they use other words that no one would say, "Oh, I'm into eugenics." Because everybody, that associates you with the Nazi Germany, where they practice this to extremes. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that's all I want to say. And instead of digging for examples, that's all. I believe that some things that are seen today, even things that are seen as philanthropic, are actually disguised eugenics. But anyway, like they go around in Africa, some World Health Organization actually, and they give injections to women between 14 and 40 of a cocktail of tetanus and another thing that ends up sterilizing them on purpose.
Oh.
And they do that, and they in India, we still have recently. I hope they've stopped. That they have forced abortions.
In China too.
And China has forced abortions. So those are all forms of eugenics. I would include culling the population to a certain number also as being eugenics, because you understand that, like, the number in a herd of animals, of gazelles, is curbed by nature, right? The wolves will keep it to a certain number and the amount of food, right? But then the idea of eugenics is, oh, we're just so technologically brilliant that there's nothing to curb us, so we need to curb our number too. But there's no real, what's called, it's a philosophy term, a priori. That means there's no, where are we getting our number of what's the right number of people? That's why the population concern, oh, 9 billion. Oh, it could be 11. He said 40 billion. Can you hear what he said? They're like, he's insane. He's not been following the story at all. He doesn't know what's going on. And that would be terrible. Those people don't realize it, but they've been brainwashed, in my opinion, by eugenicists.
And most people don't have big families anymore.
No, they don't. I wish they did.
Most people only have like 2 kids. I mean, at the most.
And frankly, the Baba world doesn't have enough babies. The Mayor Baba community.
But like back in the 40s, they used to have like big families, 6 kids.
I know.
9. I mean, we even had to come from a big family because we have 2 half sisters.
Now, the last thing I'll say about it, and I hope you have one more question because this is so good.
Yeah, I just have one more.
Okay, good, because I just want to say one more. Let's pretend that there's global warming, and let's pretend that there's a population explosion. And let's pretend that the population is at a dangerous level right now. Very, very dangerous. And if we hit 10 billion, it's going to be catastrophe. It could be a complete meltdown, okay? And because of global warming, we could suddenly get warming that would start to cause ice, icebergs to melt, and then the seas will rise, and Manhattan and Miami will be completely underwater.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be completely horrible. And let's say this happens in the next 50 years, okay? And let's say all these things are true, and that technology is not going to improve, okay? The Earth can't hold anybody else. There's not going to be any additional land that we can farm.
Well, who owns all that land? When you drive through Wyoming, like, you go through mile after mile. Is it just all privately owned, all that land?
A lot of it is, but a lot of it is state. They have, up in Wyoming, they have national parks that are 100 miles across. I mean,
yeah, I've been through Wyoming, and it's overwhelming.
You couldn't walk up. Yeah. No, once you get past Oklahoma and you drive, you never see anything ever again.
Yeah, it's kind of spooky.
It's kind of
spooky. You go west to Colorado.
If you do it in the winter when the snow is over the mountains, it's bizarre. It's like, my God, it's like what are we, on the moon? If you have to go past Oklahoma, driving west,
I was there, and was driving through there with a friend, and I got spooked in '96. I wanted to go back to Colorado. I was just like, how? No, it
is spooky. I got left. By the way, I went out to Wyoming about a year and a half ago, and the bus stopped and said, because I was going to go backpacking in this wilderness area, and the bus stopped, and was just a story, and it was dark. It was night, and she said, "Okay, this is here." And I had this backpack. It was under the bus, the backpack. And I got out, and she helped open the thing, and I got out my backpack. It was just dark. I didn't know where I was. And I was like, well, is there a hotel like near here? And she was about to get in the bus, and she was like, oh, I can't leave you here. Get back. Don't tell anybody what I'm doing. And she threw the backpack back in the thing, closed the thing, get back on the bus. And she drove me a few miles, and then stopped and said, there's the hotel.
It sounds like a scary movie.
It was like a scary, what was that, The Hills Have Eyes?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that. Even the bus driver, just like, he's going to die.
So where did she take you?
She took me to a little motel on the road.
So you went backpacking?
I did.
So.
Oh, but I want to say this final thing. But
you went to National Outdoor Leadership School when you were a teenager.
And I went to the same park. It's called the Uinta National Wilderness Area, and if you look on the map and you look at Salt Lake City, there's a wall of mountains over Salt Lake City, and then there's the Salt Lakes going out to California. And if you were to go over those mountains, you would be in the Uinta Mountain Range. So that's where it is. So that's where I went about a year and a half ago. And that's a great story for another YouTube.
You never told me about that.
Oh, I gotta tell you, because
that is spooky.
That has a Bigfoot story in it, believe it or not. I mean, it will freak you out, because I don't believe in Bigfoot, but there's a Bigfoot story.
Did you saw Bigfoot?
I heard. I definitely heard. I heard wolves, and when I got home, I looked up the sound of wolves, and that was wolves. It wasn't coyotes. It wasn't anything. It wasn't dogs. It was wolves. And I did at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was just like those old horrible. There was a scary Bigfoot movie we saw when we were young. It was like a few hundred yards away in the snow. I was in 4 feet deep snow, and there couldn't be anybody. There was no tracks. Anyway. That's too weird. I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I have heard Bigfoot, so I don't know. Megan says maybe it was like an astral Bigfoot or something. Okay, let me just say this. So let's say the world heats up, the population's it's just gonna be meltdown. We can't have this many people. It's gonna be horrible. It's just wrong. We're just gonna decimate this earth if we go on growing and the heating. Okay, and we don't do anything about coal, and none of these technologies Chris Odd is talking about are true. They never happen. We have to use coal and oil for millions of years, even though we've only used them for 100. We have to use them for 1,000,000 more, which is absurd. That's like saying there'll never be a cell phone. There'll never be a. What are you talking about? So, but if that were true, and it got real hot, and the oceans raised, and the population was so big that we were all killing each other and eating each other. We became cannibals, okay? At a certain point, the population would lower. Right?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So after a while of our eating each other and as cannibals, and we're all like, there's zombies too. We have to add some zombies.
And sitting around fires with warming our hands with those gloves with
and my old joke when we were little, like, food for you. Food for you. Yeah,
and bartering a little bit of alcohol. I've seen zombie movies like one that was, I forget, it was called Steakland.
Right.
I saw this movie called Steakland.
Right.
This boy and this man, the teenage boy and this man, are like the only people left because everybody's got this plague, kind of like The Walking Dead. And they just
I love those films too.
And the reason it's called Steakland is the only way you can kill the zombies is to put a stake through their neck.
Oh, it's over their heart.
It's really sad because they had to kill like a really nice girl that was traveling because she got captured. She got turned into a zombie. I mean, it was just sort of sad, but.
Okay, so we have Zombie Nation. It's post-apocalyptic. It's like the Road Warrior and the Road. Did you see the Road? The Road?
No.
Okay. Well, all these apocalyptic movies, and the zombie movies, throw them all. It all becomes like that. Population goes down to 2 billion people, right? Lower than it was, when we were born. 2 billion people. That's all that's left. The fuel. And at that point, well, what's there to complain about? So, in other words, if all these things are true, the very people that are worried about them end up getting what they want. And if that were to happen, and say there's 7 billion people and 5 billion died, I know that sounds terrible, but everybody that was alive 150 years ago is dead. So 150 years from now, we're all going to be dead, no matter what your philosophies are about things. We're going to be dead anyway.
I don't know. It's like they're afraid of it's an oxymoron.
Exactly.
They're afraid of this population explosion. But the thing is that
it's self-correcting.
The worst thing that can happen is that there's population decrease.
Exactly.
And they've been afraid of
Exactly.
I saw a movie on Turner
Classic. The terror is, well, we can end up with only a couple billion people. But aren't you saying that's the right number? Yes.
Yeah.
And plus, people will have learned, from the past and do things. Go ahead.
I mean, people have been thinking about this stuff since a long time because I saw a black and white Turner Classic when there was only 3 people left in the world, a white woman and a black man and a white man, and she chose the black man, and it was like, I can't remember the end, but they all decided to stick together or something. And then I said, well, my son was watching it with me, David, and I said, well, maybe she could be with both of them, and then they could have more kids. And he said,
Exactly.
but no, but
That's
he
only
said
being
a woman can only be pregnant one time at a time. See, if it was
Oh,
two women and
yeah,
one
like
man,
it doesn't help to have
yeah,
two men.
like because you can't have
No.
two.
No, you might as well get rid of one of the men. Yeah. No, but you could use him for his gene pool because you need to have extra types of genes.
Well, it sort of ended where they all stuck together. So I guess maybe she chose both of. She got to have two men.
Exactly. So if like the end of the world is that 3/4 of the world died, well, that doesn't make any sense because the whole idea is that we have too many people. So you can't cry about there's too many people and then cry about if we don't do something there'll be less people.
Yeah.
You have to decide. Do you want more people or do you want less people?
People are going to die.
Yes, they're going to die. And plus, in 150 years, you and I are going to be dead, and this will still be on YouTube. And
yeah, right.
He was right. He is dead. You can look it up. But yeah, so that's So what's the last question?
Okay. What do you feel is the Ott legacy?
Does your audience know?
Well,
what Ott means?
Our father, Lynn Ott, and Phyllis Ott met Mayor Baba in 1965 together, and they moved to the Mayor Spiritual Center. And our father was an artist, our mother is. So there's Ott is my maiden name. I'm divorced, but I kept my husband's name, my children's name, Walsh, and because I'm kind of old-fashioned, and
we're conservative.
And Chris is
if you can believe it.
Chris, my mother, and Chris's daughter.
See, you don't have to be boring to be conservative. We're conservative. We both voted for Romney.
No, we didn't.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Phyllis Ott and Chris Ott.
Okay, the
Megan
Ott legacy.
Ott are
the Ott
only
legacy.
people that actually have the Ott last name, but me and my children have the Ott genes, but we don't have the Ott name.
What's the Ott legacy?
Well, I do have the Ott name on my driver's license because that's the way they do in South Carolina.
Good.
They use it for you have to use your
it's a
maiden
conservative
name
state.
for your. That's why we live in South Carolina.
That's why I got a Confederate flag on my antenna on my car.
Love it or leave it. So anyway,
we both went to college in South Carolina. Look what good education we got. We know about Abominable Snowman, Loch Ness Monster. We want the Earth to have 40 billion people because there's not enough. We don't believe in global warming. But we believe in the Avatar, Mayor Bubble. Okay.
Okay, so
we're kind of right-wing Hindus.
So when Mom passes away, and if Megan gets married, she might change her name, but that's okay. She'll still be an Ott. You're like the last male Ott with the last name Ott, but Megan and Grandma have last name Ott.
You mean a legacy of the name? You don't mean the
no,
name.
Actually, I don't mean the name. Right. I just mean not the name.
Because the name will disappear.
I mean just the descendants of the Ott family.
The name will disappear because I only had a daughter and your sons are Walsh.
Right.
So, okay. But Lynn Ott, by the way, for the legacy of just what we're talking about, our dad was kind of famous in like a big fish in a small pond. You can look up Lynn Ott, Lynott. Or
Lynfield.
Either one.
Because
Linfield.
I've posted a picture of him. It said public figure, on Facebook.
Oh, good. Yeah, Linfield Ott or Lynn Ott will both get you. There's a Wikipedia article it'll get you to, and then from there it shows some. Anyway, he was a great man. The best thing about Dad was, everybody says, your father was so great. I miss him so much. He was you have no idea how great your father was. And I never get offended because I go, well, I can't be offended because I agree. And a lot of times people go, you look you look so much like your dad. I hate to say it. I say, well, I'm not offended because I think he was really handsome. And we both loved Dad. Mm-hmm. And we both knew all of his imperfections. So the main thing about Dad, although that's not his legacy because no one knows that, is that he truly was a great man and a wonderful man and a loving man and an imaginative man and just a wonderful person to be around. I remember liking the way his shirt smelled. I mean, he was just wonderful. But his legacy, of course, is his paintings, first of all, because in India, as you know, there was those murals, and you designed the figure of the Upasana Maharaj, Baba's master, throwing a rock at him. And that's in Mom's thing. I think she put it in the thing. It's on an Israeli website. You can download it, where it says what you and I did on the paintings, which Mom was real good about. And his paintings all over the world. There are 500 paintings, and you know you can still find old Linot paintings like Phyllis from the 60s online for sale. I saw one just the other day. So of course his paintings. Whenever you leave monuments like that, that's your main legacy. But also his story is in Baba's biography. And then the books that he wrote.
Oh yeah, volumes 19 and 20 of Lord Mayor.
Wow, that's pretty. It's almost like chapter and verse.
I read it.
What page?
We're even mentioned in Phyllis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're mentioned more than me. All right. So that's our legacy. Our own legacy is that you and I, you know, we got in the big Bible. You know, that Mayor Baba. There's an official biography of Mayor Baba that's about 6,750 pages long. In 20 volumes, hardbound. It's also online, freely online. And in there, it talks about our parents. It mentions us. So I believe if Baba's really the avatar, we think he was. If Baba really was the avatar, that means the major spiritual master of this particular period, this age, this 1,000 years, or this 700-year period. If he's like Christ, like Jesus or Buddha, Ram, Muhammad, then that book will be forever, and we're in there. So that's really all it is. Will be little footnotes, little like you need to know. Also, right there in Meheraba, Mondley Hall, you know the one by Dad in Mondley Hall. And I think that your songs will last. I think David's recording of the Parvartika Prayer by Pete Townsend, that girl's not going to throw it away. If she doesn't realize its value now or the world, she's young. She might realize it 30 years from now. Right. You know, and release it. So
plus, when things are on the internet, they're on the internet for good. It's like
sometimes
it's like
unless you remove it.
Well, you know how if you watch crime shows, even when people delete stuff, the police can find it in there somewhere.
Oh, that's true. That's
true. Like if even like phone calls, you know, they can trace your phone.
Oh, I know. It's all
the whole world is kind of tapped.
Do you know? Then that's interesting. She said that because that's really a thing about this time. We all have a legacy. Every human being really has a legacy because all this information age, it's weird, but there are people preserving it. There's a thing called the Wayback Machine. You can look it up online. It's probably the waybackmachine.org on internet, and it's based on a line from a movie from Bullwinkle. They had a Wayback Machine, which was
I remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's called the Wayback Machine.
That was a strange cartoon.
That was really the.
Like the person that made up that cartoon.
We'll do a show just on Bullwinkle.
I think that show, whoever made that cartoon, had to be on drugs or something.
We need to have a show just on like the Abominable Snowman, just on like Bullwinkle. No. Or you could just make new questions.
It was just strange characters on that cartoon.
I think that we should start more like a talk show.
Yeah.
You know, we should do this at least once a month, if not.
Yeah.
You know,
it's kind of like Oprah, and I'll go, Christmas, everybody.
I'm back. I'll be. Who's that guy who would Ed McMahon on the Tonight Show? I'll be like Ed McMahon, where I'm like the guest you can always count on.
So do you think the aughts will ever get the respect they deserve?
The aughts will never. No. Well, the way history will write it will be going. There was a very great saint, Linot. Very great. Very kind of weird wife, but she. Anyway, we won't talk about her. But then his children became progressively more psychotic, and. Do you know that Einstein had a son that had schizophrenia?
Really?
Yeah, look it up. It's kind of like
I
that.
didn't know that.
That'll be part of Lynn's legacy. Dysfunctional children that never quite pull it together. Sad. Strange. That's the way history is. Cut.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris.
Thank you for having me on the show. I can't wait to see it on YouTube.